Welcome to another Westport Community TV video. This is our 13th episode and welcome to Tertulia.
A bookshop like no other.
So this week was quite an exciting week because we had Liz Nugent, whose latest novel, Our Little Cruelties. She came to us in the shop and she has signed some books. So later in the show, I interviewed her, and we can show that and you can see that. Also coming up, we have Kate Carty from Westport talking about Black Lives Matter. So we'll come to that in a bit. So for now, Neil, you finished a book this week.
Yeah, The Jewel, Neil Hegarty. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was set in London and Dublin, so it kind of goes between the two places, which I have as well. So kind of relate to that quite a bit. And just it's quite a sort of just really interesting book.
It's about art, isn't it?
Art theft and just the people that sort of are involved in that. Yeah, it's just brilliant. Really, really interesting. So we have that in the shop available.
And I'm back on my 8th life. I know I mentioned this on the show before. It's a Georgian author, Nino Haratsishvili. It's been translated into English. It's an amazing book, and I've had it all through COVID, and I put it down, read other books, and then I've taken it back again and decided I just have to finish it. So the one at home, I've probably about 300 pages left, so I'm sticking with it. It's an amazing, epic novel that takes you through from the late 1800s to present day in Georgia, the USSR, all the changes that have gone on in those countries, in Moscow and in Georgia. So I'm sticking with that for the moment. So for now, I think we might just go over to Liz, and you can see what Liz has to say about Westport and her book, Our Little Cruelties. Over to Liz. Thanks, Liz, for coming to Westport to Tertulia. So it's great to have everyone out and about again, and you're here.
Well, yeah, I started coming to Westport a good few years ago, and when I was writing my third book, Skin Deep, I decided to set a lot of it in Westport, just because I wanted to come back and I needed the excuse to come back. So I thought, well, if I set a book partially in Westport, well then I'd have to keep coming back to do the research. So ever since, I just kind of have an affinity for the place. Anywhere along the Atlantic, to be honest, I like, tiny villages in Connemara on the Atlantic as well, but Westport's just always such a welcome area. The people are nice. Like, every time we come here, my husband and I laugh, and on our way home we always say, what bastards from Westport. Whereas in other towns, you always meet somebody who's a bit odd, but or a bit off with you, or a bit rude. But so far it's never happened in Westport. Everybody's been very welcoming. And I think it's because you're a tourist town. And you make the most of it.
But I think the West Coast has that kind of laid back feel to it. I guess it does. So no characters for your books then, although I know you did find something in Skin Deep, but
how do you mean no characters?
No characters for your flawed characters for your other novels, or that you find when you're in Westport now?
Oh no, it's not that they're from Westport that makes it flawed. No. I just like the flawed characters, and then I plant them wherever, like in the south of France, or in that book, Skin Deep, in the third one, she starts off on an island and loosely based on English Turkey, and then makes her way to Westport, where she spends her teenage years, and then to Ballina, and then to 1980s London, and then to the south of France, and then to Monaco, and then to living the high life, and then she climbs the ladder socially, and then she falls back down it very disgracefully. So I enjoyed writing that.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again in Westport and enjoying your trip.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to be here.
That was great.
And we have some copies in the shop. Just to remind you, signed copies from Liz. So if you're passing by and want to get a book, here we go.
Is there a signature there?
That's proof.
Yeah.
So also this week, just some books that we got in.
Diary of a Young Naturalist, a young man in Northern Ireland who's just quite an amazing guy. Chris Packham the Naturalist is really keen on him, so he's quite an interesting character, and this is just going to be quite a big seller for us.
Yeah, it was quite hard to get. They're kind of in demand. So yeah, we've just got that in, so we'll be doing a review of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, 2 other novels. Well, no, this is actually more a memoir, I suppose. Jump by Daniella Moyles. We've sold tons of them already in the shop.
It's a really interesting looking book.
Just seems to be grabbing people. It's about Daniella Moyles, who at 29 was a model, radio presenter, influencer, was driving on the M50, wasn't
Stuck in traffic in the rain, and just decided that she couldn't take it anymore.
And decided to jump. So she jumped into a different life for herself, and that's what the book's about. So we haven't read it yet, it's on our list, but lots of our customers have read it and are reading it and absolutely love it. So that's highly recommended, and it's a gorgeous cover. Actually, it really does sell the book. Another book we had in this week is Blue Ticket from Sophie Macintosh. Sophie was longlisted for the Booker Prize for her other novel, The Water Cure. Really looking forward to reading that one. It's a dystopian novel, and it has really grabbed people as well. It seems to be out there. People are looking for this book. So Kate Carty. Kate is a writer and lives in Westport. We meet here, or we had been meeting nearly every second Wednesday for a group of people who write and want to review books. So like a writer's book club. And this is the book we've used from it, The Art of the Personal Essay, because it is actually essays we've reviewed mostly. It's been fascinating, read all sorts of different stories, literature that I wouldn't normally read. Now Kate is going to read a piece that she's written, which is really interesting, and it's on the theme of Black Lives Matter, which has been in all our minds, and we have sold an enormous amount of books on racism.
We have indeed.
And it's been the thing of the day, and it's really excellent if it, we wanted to raise people's awareness. So over to Kate. Hi Kate.
Hi Bree.
Welcome to Tertulia.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it is fantastic to be out and about doing stuff again. So today we've got Kate. Kate is the facilitator of our book club for writers. So we started meeting last year sometime, and it's really to review writing so that we can help our writing.
Absolutely, yeah. So we actually look at different essays or short stories.
Read a lot from this book, The Art of the Personal Essay,
which I would highly recommend. And we've read some amazing work, haven't we? And I think once we've got into discussing it, we've all learnt so much about the art of storytelling, how to engage readers, and how to put levels of meaning in, so it's not just the story on the surface. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh,
Bree?
totally. I mean, I enjoy it. I do feel like a bit of a fraud at times. But yes, we've read fantastic essays, and I thoroughly love our evening. So I hope we'll be able to get back to them soon.
So
we should be able to soon. So today Kate is going to read a piece she's written inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'll hand to you, Kate, to introduce it and read your piece.
Okay, this is a piece that I wrote because I went on the demonstration in Westport a few weeks ago, which was prompted by Black Lives Matter, and afterwards I just wrote about it because I just felt quite strongly about it. So I'll just read through it.
Yeah.
I went on a demonstration, on a demonstration in a pandemic, for God's sake. I do feel strongly that we need to address the massive inequalities and prejudices that black people face. However, I never believed that demonstrations and protests made that much difference. I thought it was just the liberal left sticking 2 fingers up at the establishment. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe in truth, I was just lazy, fearful of sticking my head above the parapet, frightened of not being a good girl, of not fitting in. You see, I always wanted to fit in, to belong. I wanted that more than anything. I think we all do. At school, I was a swot. I wanted to impress, to achieve, earn my place with cleverness. I didn't think I was clever, but I was desperate to prove that I was so I could fit in. At Newcastle University in the 80s, I was even more desperate to fit in, coming from an Irish immigrant working class family. They all seemed so posh, with vows that stretched to infinity. They had lunch at dinner time and dinner at tea time. so I just kept my head down, and apart from missing the odd lecture, I fully conformed. My only rebellion was occasionally buying the communist paper, the Morning Star. My fellow law students back then were very white, very middle class, very Anglo-Saxon. There was only one black law student who was posher than the rest of us put together. He was the son of an African king and reportedly arrived at the start of every term in a private jet. He had attended Eton or Harrow, and he had one of the plummiest accents I have ever heard. I'm sure he encountered racism and prejudice at the British bar, but his status and wealth would have protected him from the brutality visited upon George Floyd. His privileged life and intellect enabled him to breathe more freely than many of his black brethren. On Saturday, I felt that I needed to do something. I'd spent my entire career in the UK criminal justice system working to address the inequalities and racism that is inherent in all institutions run by white people. We may deny it, but just because we ignore the truth doesn't make it go away. And I'm as guilty as the next person. Many years ago in Nottingham, where I lived and worked, one Saturday night, my husband and I were going to a party at a friend's house in Macaulay. We were driving through Houghton Green, where I was born and lived for the first decade of my life. It's a deprived neighbourhood that still houses numerous immigrants of every race and creed. As we approached a junction outside an infamous pub, I saw an old woman collapse to the pavement. There were few people around. It was early on a June evening, full of sunshine. I stopped the car. My husband was horrified. He said, "Oh my God, you're not really going over there, are you? You, of all people, should know how dodgy it is around here." I said, "I have to, Steve. I'm always spouting on at work about Pharisees and hypocrisy. She needs a Samaritan, so you call the ambulance." I crossed over the busy road. No one else stopped. She was a white woman and was completely unconscious. I knelt down beside her. I couldn't smell drink. I turned her onto her side and checked that she was still breathing. There were coins and notes beside her on the pavement. I heard male voices above me and saw that two young black lads had stopped and were picking up the money. I felt really frightened. My heart was racing. I thought, my God, they're robbers. They're going to attack me next. One of them bent down towards me, offering me the money with his open palm. "What will we do with this lady? It must be hers." His voice was soft and kind. He took out his mobile and said, "I'll call an ambulance." "No, don't. My husband has called them." "Cool. What shall we do, lady?" "Can you stay with her while I go into the pub and get a blanket, as she's cold and I need something for her head?" "No, this'll do." He took off his grey hoodie, he rolled it up and he gently placed it under her head. I left them minding her and went into the Bentic bar and got a blanket off the landlady. When I came out, I saw that one of them was stroking her hand, telling her that help was on its way. Within minutes we heard the sirens of the ambulance. The two lads got up and said, "We'll go, we don't want no trouble." They both sauntered off down the road, leaving the hoodie still under her head. I have it somewhere at home. I still feel shame that in my head I presume those two lads were thieves because of their colour, their dress and their youth. We do it all the time. It's part of our nature. We are a tribal species. Human brains are designed to trigger a fear response when we're confronted by those who look different from us. For millennia it served us because we were constantly under threat from each other and fighting over land or resources. This knowledge helps me to be more aware of my own prejudices, helps me not to act on these thoughts or instincts. Thoughts only harm the thinker, I've realised. It's our speech and behaviour which hurts other people. It's our speech and behaviour that helps other people. So I went on my first demonstration. I held up my handmade sign, "Black Lives Matter." There were about 50 people around the octagon holding placards and kneeling in support. I counted only 5 who were black. Most of the protests in America and around the world are the same. their multiracial, multi-generational process against racial prejudice, inequality and police terror against communities of colour. Barack Obama in recent speeches has remarked on the broad coalition of those who are protesting all over the world. It's a welcome development. After all, as the philosopher Bertrand Russell remarked, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So on Saturday, I kept thinking about all those years ago when I was travelling in Africa myself and I stayed in Arusha in Tanzania. My husband and I were the only white faces on the streets. It was the rainy season, so no other Westerners were in town going on safari. Everyone was kind and friendly, which made us feel safe and welcome. However, I still felt really uncomfortable. I stuck out like a sore thumb everywhere I went. I didn't like it. I wanted to blend in. It must feel similar for black people living here in our white towns. I hope our kindness and friendliness makes them feel safe and welcome. I believe that small acts like that can make as much difference as all these demonstrations. When we remember the past and act in the present, we can change the future. We can help them to fit in. That was my piece.
Oh, thank you, Kate. That certainly
Thank you,
gave us a lot of things to think about.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and we look forward to hearing some more on that theme and from other authors, and for getting a lot more interesting books as well on that theme. So that's
it for now.
For today.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got our new books: Blue Ticket, Jump, Diary of the Young Naturalist, and we actually have many more new books in the shop. There are so many. We almost don't want to tell them to people because I want to read them all. So I'm going to be finishing my 8th life, and I will hopefully finish that this week and have a new book next week. So thank you everyone, and talk to you soon.